The Last Ambassador. The Galactic Coalition station gleamed like a jewel against the backdrop of space, its crystalline spires catching light from the nearby star. Yet despite its beauty, Commander Elena Reyes felt only dread as she stood at the viewport in her quarters. 7 days had passed since the incident at Proxima Centauri. 7 days since every alien species had withdrawn their ambassadors from Earth. 7 days since humanity had been declared a dangerous emerging species and placed under quarantine. And today was the final evacuation of all human personnel from the station. All except her. A soft chime announced a visitor. Elena straightened her dark blue diplomatic uniform, smoothing the silver Earth emblem on her chest before calling, "Enter." Admiral Hassan appeared in the doorway, his weathered face etched with concern. "Your transport leaves in 30 minutes, Commander. Are your belongings packed?" Elena gestured to the single small bag on her bed. 20 years of diplomatic service reduced to essentials. "I'm not leaving, Admiral." Hassan stepped into the room, the door sliding shut behind him. "This isn't a request, Elena. It's a direct order from Earth Command. The quarantine goes into effect at 600 station time. Any humans found outside Sol system after that will be considered rogue agents. Then I'll be a rogue agent." Elena turned to face him fully, her dark eyes resolute. "Someone needs to stay and find out what really happened. The Coalition's story doesn't add up." "You think I don't know that?" Hassan lowered his voice. "A human colony ship supposedly attacking the sacred Luminarian monument. The most heavily guarded site in Coalition space. It's obviously fabricated, but without proof." "Which is exactly why I need to stay," Elena interrupted. 20 years I built relationships here. Some of these ambassadors were at my wedding, attended Jacob's funeral. Her voice caught briefly at the mention of her late husband. "They know me. Trust me. If anyone can find the truth, I can." Hassan studied her for a long moment. At 52, Elena Reyes was Earth's most experienced diplomat, respected even among species that found humans biologically repulsive. Her olive skin was now lined with experience, black hair streaked with silver, but her reputation remained impeccable. "And if you're caught investigating?" he asked softly. "Then I'll face the consequences." Elena picked up a small holographic frame from her desk, the last photo taken of her and Jacob before his shuttle accident 3 years ago. She tucked it into her bag. "We both know this quarantine is just the beginning. If I don't find proof of what's really happening, the Coalition might decide humanity is too dangerous to exist at all." The Admiral's silence confirmed her fears. "Give me 3 months," Elena said. "If I haven't found anything by then, I'll find a way back to Earth." Hassan sighed heavily. "I can give you supply drops at the Kuiper trading outpost. Untraceable. But officially, you're defying orders and acting alone." "Understood. The meritocracy will push for harsher sanctions. They've never liked how quickly humans advanced." Hassan moved toward the door. "Watch Ambassador Tekla especially. She's been suspiciously quiet during the council debates." Elena nodded. The 8-limbed meritocracy ambassador had indeed been uncharacteristically reserved, while other species condemned humanity. "Good luck, Commander." Hassan paused at the doorway. "Earth is counting on you, whether they know it or not." After he left, Elena moved to her terminal and began encrypting her personal files. If she was going to operate covertly, she needed to eliminate any obvious surveillance points. As Earth's official presence vanished from the station, she would become invisible, just another service worker in the vast diplomatic complex. 4 hours later, Elena watched from a maintenance corridor as the last human transport undocked from the station. Through a viewport, she saw its engines flare blue as it accelerated toward the jump point that would take it back to Sol. Behind her, the corridor stretched empty and silent, much like her future now. She had discarded her uniform for plain gray maintenance coveralls, her commander's insignia and credentials hidden in a secret compartment in her quarters. According to station records, Commander Elena Reyes had departed with the other humans. Only Elena Diaz, recently hired custodial staff, remained. Bold move, human. Alina whirled around, hand moving to the small shock button concealed in her sleeve. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and slender with iridescent blue-green skin and 4 articulated arms. Ambassador Nyx of the Meridian Conclave. Ambassador, Alina said carefully, lowering her hand, but remaining tense. The Meridians had been among the most vocal calling for human containment. No need for titles now, Nyx said, compound eyes reflecting the starlight from the viewport. We are both, as you might say, off the record. The universal translator gave Nyx's speech a melodic quality, though Alina knew the actual sounds were clicks and whistles beyond human hearing. What do you want? Alina asked. To know why Earth's most decorated diplomat would risk execution to remain on a station where every species has rejected her kind. Nyx moved closer, head tilting with curiosity. Unless you know something is wrong with the narrative. Alina remained silent, evaluating. The Meridians were known for their complex political maneuvering, but also for their strict adherence to truth in personal dealings. The incident at the monument, Nyx continued. The evidence presented was inconsistent with Meridian observational data. Alina's heart raced. You have proof it was fabricated. Not proof. Anomalies. Discrepancies in the sensor readings. Enough to create doubt, not enough to challenge the coalition's official position. Nyx's upper arms performed a gesture Alina recognized as indicating discretion. My government has chosen political expediency over truth. I find I cannot do the same. Why tell me this? Because something far greater than a diplomatic incident is occurring. Nyx's voice dropped lower. 6 cycles ago, representatives from the leading coalition powers held a private meeting in the secure chambers. No records exist of this meeting. Yet immediately afterward, the monument incident occurred, and humanity was accused. Alina processed this information carefully. You think humanity is being deliberately isolated. Why? That is what we must discover. Nyx extended a lower arm, revealing a small data crystal. This will grant you access to maintenance systems throughout the diplomatic quarter. We Meridians believe in contingencies. Alina took the crystal, concealing it quickly. Why help me? The Meridian Conclave has existed for 12,000 years, human. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We recognize patterns. Nyx's compound eyes seemed to look through Alina. When powerful species unite to eliminate a younger one, it is rarely about security. It is about fear. Fear of what? Of what you might become. Nyx moved toward the shadows again. I will contact you again when it is safe. Until then, Custodian Dias, I suggest you clean very thoroughly in places where important people speak freely. After Nyx disappeared, Alina clutched the data crystal tightly. She was no longer alone, but that brought its own dangers. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford, not completely. But it was a start. Over the next 3 weeks, Alina established her cover identity thoroughly. She cleaned diplomatic offices during off hours, planted discreet listening devices, and gathered fragments of information. The station's massive database was closed to her now, but she found other ways to piece together what was happening. The Coalition's 7 major powers, the Meridian Conclave, the Lithic Meritocracy, the Photonic Assembly, the Thylan Empire, the Voidborn Collective, the Hegemony of 12, and the Tachyan Dominion, were all participating in unprecedented joint military exercises near the borders of human space. Supply chains to human colonies were being systematically cut off. Proposals for containment structures at jump points leading to Sol were being drafted. This wasn't just a diplomatic crisis. It was the prelude to something far worse. On the 23rd day after the human evacuation, Alina was cleaning the private chamber reserved for the Lithic Meritocracy when she discovered something unusual. The crystalline beings rarely left physical evidence behind, but a small data terminal had been accidentally left active. Working quickly, Alina attached a decoder to the terminal and began downloading its contents. The data was heavily encrypted, but fragments were readable. References to Operation Firebreak, a Phase 2 implementation timeline, and most disturbing, something called the Prometheus contingency. As she worked, a noise at the chamber entrance startled her. Elena barely had time to disconnect her device and slide it into her pocket before the massive form of Ambassador Tekla filled the doorway. 8 articulated limbs supported a body covered in diamond heart plates, while sensory clusters positioned around a central node served as the lithic equivalent of a face. Human. Tekla's voice resonated through the chamber, artificial translation, making the word sound like an accusation. Your presence is unauthorized. Elena kept her head bowed, heart pounding. Apologies, Ambassador. Maintenance assigned me to prepare the chamber for tomorrow's delegation. The crystalline being moved further into the room, limbs creating a rhythmic clicking on the floor. Curious. Records indicate all humans departed the station 23 cycles ago. Elena realized with a sinking feeling that her cover was blown. She could run, but there was nowhere to go. Instead, she straightened her back and met the ambassador's sensory clusters directly. Not all humans, Ambassador Tekla. Commander Elena Reyes. Tekla's voice shifted to a higher register, indicating surprise. Your deception was impressive. Few species can surprise the meritocracy. Why is the Coalition lying about what happened at the monument? Elena asked directly, abandoning pretense. We both know no human ship attacked it. Tekla's crystalline plates shifted, reflecting light in complex patterns. A dangerous accusation from a species in quarantine. Is it less dangerous than Operation Firebreak or the Prometheus contingency? Elena countered, watching as Tekla's plates stilled, the lithic equivalent of shock. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Tekla moved to seal the chamber door. You understand nothing, human, Tekla said, voice modulated to a lower frequency. The Prometheus contingency is not what you imagine. It is protection. Protection from what? From you. From all humans. Tekla moved to the center of the room. Your species advanced from primitive radio signals to interstellar travel in less than 200 years. The lithic required 2,000 for the same development. The meridians, 1,500. This acceleration is unprecedented. So humanity is being punished for learning quickly. Elena felt anger rising. Punished? No. Contained. Guided. Tekla's plates shifted again. Coalition predictive models show humanity reaching Class IV technological status within 3 centuries. No other known species has achieved this without self-destruction or causing catastrophic damage to neighboring civilizations. Elena had studied the Coalition's technological classification system. Class IV meant capabilities approaching godlike, matter manipulation at the subatomic level, dimensional engineering, consciousness transfer. It was theoretical for most Coalition species. So this quarantine is temporary, Tekla finished, until proper control mechanisms can be implemented. The attack was fabricated, yes, but with purpose. Better a controlled isolation than the extinction that would surely follow unchecked human advancement. The crystalline being moved closer. You should not be here, Commander. Your presence jeopardizes delicate arrangements. Arrangements made without humanity's knowledge or consent. Elena replied sharply. You're deciding our future without giving us a voice. Because you would not accept the necessary limitations. Tekla's voice hardened. Now I must report your presence to Coalition security. As Tekla moved toward the communication panel, Elena made a desperate decision. She pulled the shock baton from her sleeve and lunged forward, striking at the junction between Tekla's plates where she knew the lithic's neural pathways were less protected. The ambassador shuddered as electrical current disrupted its crystalline nervous system, plates locking into immobility. Elena knew it would only last minutes, enough time to escape, but her cover was irrevocably blown. As she slipped from the chamber, Elena realized the truth was far worse than she'd imagined. This wasn't just a conspiracy against humanity. It was an existential judgment by the most powerful civilizations in known space. And somehow, she had to prove them wrong. The truth unveiled. Sweat beaded on Elena's forehead as she crawled through the narrow maintenance shaft. 3 days had passed since her confrontation with Ambassador Tekla. 3 days of hiding in the forgotten corners of the station, while coalition security hunted for her. The Lithic meritocracy have issued a formal protest demanding her capture, claiming she had assaulted a diplomatic representative and stolen classified information. They weren't entirely wrong. The data she'd taken from Tekla's terminal had been partial but revealing. Operation Firebreak wasn't just about quarantining Earth. It was a comprehensive plan to permanently limit human technological development. The coalition intended to introduce engineered biological agents to subtly reduce human cognitive function over generations, install hidden monitoring devices throughout Sol system, and, if necessary, deploy weapons platforms that could target Earth's major population centers, all to prevent humanity from reaching its potential. Elena emerged from the shaft into a small storage room where she'd established her latest hiding place. A makeshift bed of maintenance blankets lay in one corner, while portable screens displayed security feeds she tapped into. Her food supplies were running dangerously low. A soft tapping on the ventilation grill announced a visitor. Elena raised her shock baton, then lowered it as Nex's iridescent form squeezed through the opening. "You've caused quite the disruption, human," the Meridian said, forearms gesturing in what Elena recognized as an expression of impressed surprise. The Lithic rarely admit to being outsmarted, especially by a supposedly inferior species. "I've discovered what they're planning," Elena said, showing Nyx the decoded files. "They want to deliberately stunt humanity's development. Keep us permanently subordinate." Nyx studied the data, compound eyes reflecting the screen's light. The Conclave suspected as much. The older powers fear rapid change. It threatens their position. "I need to get this information back to Earth," Elena said. "But every transport is being searched, and my face is on every security screen." "There may be another way," Nyx replied. "But it requires something unexpected, something the Coalition would never anticipate. Which is, you must address the full assembly yourself." Elena stared at the Meridian in disbelief. "The assembly? That's impossible. I'm a fugitive, remember." "The Coalition is bound by its own laws," Nyx explained. "Any sentient being may invoke the right of grievance before the assembly if they can demonstrate potential harm from a Coalition action. It is an ancient provision, rarely used, but legally binding. They'll arrest me the moment I show my face. Not if you are under the protection of a council member." Nyx's upper arms performed a gesture of commitment. "The Meridian Conclave will grant you this protection." "Why would you risk that? Your people voted for the quarantine." "My government, yes. But not all Meridians agree." Nyx moved closer. "Some of us believe in a different future, one where humanity's potential is not something to fear, but something to nurture, with appropriate guidance, not control." Elena considered the proposal. "Even with your protection, I'd need evidence more compelling than these fragments. Something irrefutable." "The Coalition keeps complete records of all official decisions in the Central Archive," Nyx said, "including, I suspect, the true plans for humanity. But the archive is the most secure location on the station." "Then that's where we need to go." Elena stood, decision made. "How do we get in?" "We don't," Nyx replied. "But there is someone who can." That someone turned out to be Vox, a member of the Photonic Assembly, beings of organized light and energy who had transcended physical form millennia ago. Vox manifested as a swirling pattern of amber light contained within a specialized field projector. As a data analyst for the archive, they had access to its innermost systems. "Your situation is fascinating," Vox said, voice emerging as modulated light patterns translated into sound. "The Photonic Assembly has observed humanity with particular interest. Your species possesses unusual cognitive patterns." "Is that why the Coalition fears us?" Elena asked. "Partly," Vox replied. Humans combine logical processing with intuitive leaps in ways that our predictive models struggle to accommodate. This creates uncertainty, which creates fear. They were meeting in an abandoned monitoring station near the outer hull, a place the energy-based photonics rarely visited due to radiation interference. Alina had risked exposure to come here, but if Nix was right about Vox's sympathies, it was worth it. Will you help us access the archive? Alina asked directly. Vox's light patterns shifted through complex arrangements. The Assembly has not reached consensus on humanity's potential. Some believe, as the other powers do, that your development must be controlled. Others see possibilities. And which view do you hold? Alina pressed. I believe in information freedom, Vox replied simply. The decision about humanity's future should be made with complete data, not selective evidence. I will help you access the archive. The plan they developed was dangerous but feasible. In 12 hours, a major diplomatic reception would be held to celebrate the Exile Empire's 5,000th cycle of coalition membership. Security would be focused on the gathering, creating an opportunity to access the archive with Vox's credentials. Alina spent those hours preparing, studying the station schematics Nix provided and memorizing the exact location of the files they needed. When the time came, she disguised herself in a maintenance exosuit, fully enclosed and typically used for external repairs. With Nix and Vox flanking her, they approached the archive's secondary entrance. Security protocols active, announced an automated system as they reached the entrance. Identity verification required. Vox floated forward, light patterns pulsing in specific sequences. Analyst Vox, Photonic Assembly, Security Clearance Epsilon. Identity confirmed. The system responded. Purpose of visit during celebration hours. Data retrieval for the Exile historical presentation. Vox replied smoothly. Time-sensitive material requested by Ambassador Xorthal. After a tense moment, the massive doors slid open. Access granted. Please note all retrievals are logged. They moved quickly through the gleaming corridors of the archive, passing data storage units that contained the accumulated knowledge of 27,000 years of coalition history. Alina felt the weight of it, the countless civilizations that had risen and fallen, the vast tapestry of galactic history that humanity had only just begun to touch. The restricted files will be in the governance sector, Vox explained, leading them to a secured lift. Level 7. Even with my clearance, we will have only minutes before security protocols note the anomalous access pattern. The lift descended smoothly, opening into a dimly lit chamber filled with crystalline data cores pulsing with internal light. Vox moved immediately to a central terminal, light tendrils extending to interface directly with the system. Search parameters. The photonic asked. Operation Firebreak, Prometheus contingency, human containment protocols. Alina replied. Anything related to the quarantine decision. Vox's light form dimmed slightly as they connected with the archive systems. Accessing. Security barriers encountered. Bypassing. Alina watched nervously as Nix monitored the entrance. Each second felt like an eternity, knowing discovery would mean not just her own capture but severe consequences for her allies. Files located, Vox announced suddenly. Transferring to secure crystal. The full operational plans are extensive. How bad? Alina asked. Worse than you suspected, Vox replied, light patterns showing distress. Phase 3 includes provisions for targeted extinction if human development continues beyond certain parameters. Alina felt cold dread settle in her stomach. They'd destroy Earth. Only as a last resort. But yes, the option is explicitly included. Vox disconnected from the system, a small data crystal now glowing with stored information. You have your evidence, Commander. As Vox handed her the crystal, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the chamber. Security breach detected, announced the automated system. Archive lockdown initiated. We've been discovered, Nix said urgently. The reception must have ended early. There's another way out. Vox indicated a maintenance shaft. It leads to the diplomatic quarter. Go now. What about you? Elena asked. I will remain, the photonic replied. My presence can be explained. Yours cannot. Elena hesitated only briefly before taking the crystal and following Nyx into the shaft. Behind them, security forces would already be converging on the archive. Their window of opportunity was closing fast. They emerged in a quiet corridor near the assembly chambers, where in 8 hours the coalition would gather for its weekly session. According to Nyx's plan, that was when Elena would invoke the right of grievance, a desperate gamble to force the coalition to confront its own deception. Rest while you can, Nyx advised as they reached a secure room the Meridian had prepared. Tomorrow will require all your diplomatic skills. Elena clutched the data crystal, thinking of Earth, of the billions of humans unaware that their future was being decided in their absence. They never gave us a chance, she said softly. They decided what we would become without ever asking who we might want to be. That is your strongest argument, Nyx replied. Make them hear it. The assembly chamber hummed with the voices of 200 species as representatives took their places for the weekly session. At the center, the Council of Seven, leaders of the most powerful coalition members, prepared to address agenda items. None of them expected what came next. As the Thailand representative began speaking about trade regulations, the massive doors at the rear of the chamber opened. A hush fell as Elena Reyes, wearing her full diplomatic uniform, walked purposefully down the central aisle. Flanking her were Ambassador Nyx and, surprisingly, 3 other representatives, one each from the Voidborn Collective, the Hegemony of 12, and the Tachyon Dominion. What is the meaning of this interruption? Demanded the Lithic meritocracy's council member, crystalline plates shifting in agitation. Security, remove the human immediately. I invoke the right of grievance, Elena announced, her voice carrying through the chamber. Under Coalition Charter, Article 7, any sentient being may address this assembly when facing existential harm from coalition action. Murmurs rippled through the gathered representatives. The right of grievance was ancient and rarely invoked, but legally binding. Even more surprising was the presence of council species representatives supporting the human's claim. The human is a fugitive, objected Ambassador Tekla. She assaulted a diplomatic representative and stole classified information. Information that belongs in the light, countered Nyx, stepping forward. The Meridian Conclave grants protection to Commander Reyes for the duration of this proceeding. The council members conferred briefly before the Thailand representative, a massive reptilian being with iridescent scales, spoke. The right of grievance is acknowledged. You may present your case, human. You have the assembly's attention. Elena moved to the speaker's position, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien gazes upon her. The data crystal felt heavy in her hand as she inserted it into the central display terminal. Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Coalition, she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I stand before you not just as a representative of humanity, but as a witness to deception at the highest levels of this institution. The display activated, projecting the classified files for all to see, the fabricated evidence of the monument attack, the detailed plans for human containment, the chilling provisions for species management that amounted to biological warfare. Humanity has been judged guilty without trial, condemned without evidence, and sentenced without representation. Elena continued as gasps and murmurs spread through the chamber. The attack on the Luminarian monument never happened. It was manufactured as a pretext to implement Operation Firebreak, a plan to permanently limit human potential through means that violate the Coalition's own founding principles. The council members shifted uncomfortably as the evidence continued to display. Elena could see the shock on many representatives' faces as they realized the extent of the deception. Is this who we are? She asked, looking around the chamber. A coalition that fears new ideas so much we would destroy them. That values stability over growth. That would rather eliminate a different perspective than learn from it. Ambassador Tekla moved forward, crystalline form glittering under the chamber lights. The evidence was indeed manufactured, the Lithic admitted, surprising many. But the threat is real. Predictive models show human advancement reaching dangerous levels within centuries. The Coalition acted to protect galactic stability. By planning our eventual extinction, Elena countered. How is that protection? You do not understand the dangers of unchecked technological advancement. The Photonic Council member interjected, light patterns pulsing rapidly. 27 species have destroyed themselves after reaching the threshold humanity approaches. 12 more caused catastrophic damage to neighboring systems before being contained. So you decided to contain us before we had the chance to prove ourselves different, Elena replied. You claim to value diversity across the galaxy, yet you enforce conformity of development. She turned to address the full assembly, passion filling her voice. Humanity is young. We make mistakes. We can be impulsive and sometimes frightening in our speed. But we also learn. We adapt. We imagine possibilities others might miss. Elena gestured to her allies, representatives from 4 major coalition powers. These leaders saw another path. Not control, but cooperation. Not limitation, but guidance. They recognized that humanity's rapid advancement could benefit all species if properly channeled. The chamber had grown silent, hundreds of alien representatives considering her words. Elena knew this moment would determine not just her fate, but potentially the future of her entire species. I ask not for special treatment, she continued, but for the chance to prove ourselves as true partners in this coalition. Remove the quarantine. Establish legitimate cultural and technological exchange programs. If you fear our development, help guide it, not through deception and control, but through mentorship and cooperation. She paused, looking directly at the council members. The greatness of the coalition has always been its ability to incorporate new perspectives while maintaining core principles. Will you abandon those principles out of fear, or embrace them by giving humanity a genuine chance? For long moments after she finished, the chamber remained silent. Then, one by one, representatives began to signal their positions. The Voidborn Collective was first. We support reconsideration of the human quarantine. Then the hegemony of 12. We propose a monitored integration program as an alternative to Operation Firebreak. The Meridian Conclave. We withdraw support for the containment protocols and propose a new framework for human engagement. Others followed, until over half the assembly had signaled support for Elena's position. The coalition's carefully constructed consensus was crumbling in the face of truth. Finally, the silent council member raised a clawed hand for silence. It appears this assembly must reconsider its approach to humanity. The evidence of procedural violations is concerning. We will adjourn to discuss appropriate measures. As the session ended, representatives clustered in animated discussion. Elena found herself surrounded by alien diplomats curious about humanity's perspective, many expressing dismay at the Council's actions. It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was the beginning of a new conversation. You have created quite the diplomatic incident, Commander, Nix observed, joining her as the crowd thinned. The Council will not easily forgive being exposed. But they'll adapt, Elena replied, just as we will. What happens now? Asked Vox, who had joined them after being cleared of wrongdoing in the Archive incident. Elena looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's massive viewport, thinking of Earth and the message she would soon send home. Now we begin the real work, building understanding, establishing trust, finding a path forward that honors both humanity's potential and the Coalition's wisdom. She smiled slightly. It won't be easy. But then, nothing worth doing ever is. 3 months later, as the first official human delegation returned to the Coalition station, Commander Elena Reyes stood at the docking bay to greet them. The quarantine had been lifted, replaced with a cooperative development protocol that provided for cultural exchange, technological monitoring, and regular consultation. It wasn't perfect, Many species still regarded humans with suspicion, and the Council remained divided on humanity's ultimate role in galactic affairs. But a door had been opened that once seemed permanently closed. As Elena greeted the new human ambassador, none other than Admiral Hassan, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. "You did the impossible," Hassan said quietly as they walked toward the diplomatic quarter. "One person against the entire coalition." Elena shook her head. "Not alone. I had help. From people, beings who could see beyond fear to possibility." Ahead of them stretched the long corridor leading to the assembly chamber, where humanity would soon take its provisional seat among the galactic community. The path forward would be challenging, the scrutiny intense, but the alternative, isolation and eventual extinction, had been averted. For now, that was enough.